webinar. My name is Christina Wasik. I manage marketing here at Skyland, and I'll be running today's session. Before we get started, just a couple housekeeping items to ensure audio quality. All attendees will remain on mute throughout the session. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to you early next week. And lastly, we welcome questions. To make sure that we stay on track time-wise, please feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen to send us your questions, and then we'll address them at the end of the webinar. All right, so here's the agenda. We'll spend the next 30 minutes demonstrating our newly released PIMS features and functionality, and do Q&A, like I said, at the end. We have two Skyland team members presenting today. David Brick, who is our Senior Director, Data Sciences. He'll be presenting our new connectivity functionality. And we also have Brett Ronley, Senior Director, Applications, who will walk us through the additional features, including our new charting tool. Just a quick overview from me. Our goal with this recent release was to improve your ability to quickly define and control data sets across systems and more easily extract analytics from your data. Some of the key features in this release include external data source connectivity, specifically SQL-based database connectivity, new options for defining parameters, including derived, queried, and limits only, and additional control charting capabilities that you see here, such as individuals, the moving range, XBar, XBar and R, and XBar and S. We also have a number, as you can see here, of additional enhancements. I won't go through all of these with you. Brent will be addressing many of them, but just to point out a few, the site-level settings for default chart preferences, data and time formats by site, and the ability to add comments to discrete parameter values. Okay, so without further ado, I will pass the screen over to David to review connectivity.
You just want to go to the next slide? Yep. So our goal with PIMS is to be able to bring data together from all of your manufacturing data sources and have all your manufacturing data in one place. With that in mind, we started off by building some data entry functionality with batches, and got the initial releases of PIMS to be able to get data that's on paper into the system. With version 3.1, we've started down our path of connecting to other systems. So where you have other data in other systems, we'll be able to query that data and pull it in. And as you see on this slide, we'll look at LIMS, Kappa, MES, EBR, ERP, historians, and other systems. Go to the next slide. So as we looked at how we wanted to manage connectivity and bring in data from other systems, we had three key points to our design. Data integrity. We want to make sure that all the data that you get is valid and correct. With that in mind, everything we do as we step through this is tested. You can't move on to the next step without completing a test to make sure you're getting the right data back. We also focused on setting ease of setup, ease of use. We want something that doesn't require a week-long training class to be able to set it up and run it. And then we also want to be able to have PIMS managed by the process experts. There is, of course, creating connectivity to other systems. There is some need for IT involvement, and that there'll be some kind of connection steps there. But we want the bulk of the work to be something that's managed by the process experts. So what we've built into 3.1 is connection to relational SQL-based data sources. So we can get data from most of your manufacturing systems that are sitting on Oracle or SQL Server. To get there, we do need to have a VPN connection. that'll ensure the security of that connection. And we've built 3.1 to support discrete parameters. So where we can get an individual value for a batch. That can be individual values, it can also be summary statistics. As we move on to future releases, we'll be adding continuous and replicate parameters and connectivity to historians and some other environments. So Chris, if you can let me share, I'll walk through this in the system. So starting here on the process page, but if I click the drop down here and go under settings, there's an entry for database access. And this is actually where we set up both data coming into PIMS and data going out of PIMS. So the first screen is data going out, but we'll look at the data sources page here. And in here, we'll see that we have 3 connections set up, 1 to a global LIMS system, and then 2 to site-based batch record and historian system. And as I said, with the testing, we can't move on before we test anything. So I've already executed a test here, but I can verify that I can still connect to the LIMS data and use that connection. The next step, once we have a connection established, is to configure data source queries. These queries can be very simple, as in this samples query for LIMS, and they can get a lot more complex. One of the functions we have in here is something we call a placeholder. That lets us use multiple or different values for different parameters as part of the query. And in this case, we have a very simple case where we just have a single test name. In the case up above here, you can configure PIMS to be able to get multiple values. And we can make the queries a lot more complex and have multiple placeholders throughout the query as needed. So these get set up and used and defined by an IT person who's familiar with these SQL queries. And then they will need some test data to make sure they're getting the right data back from the query. But they'll set that up and then communicate what should be used when you're in the process definition and want to define a parameter. So if I jump over there and I can look at this final TCC parameter, if I go in to edit it, I'll see I have an option here that lets me select the data source, parameter source, so you'll see queried there. And then I have a list of data source queries. One of the things that will be important for the IT person setting up these queries is to come up with a good naming scheme that makes them very explicit so you know which query you're pulling. From there, you'll need to identify a batch ID and a parameter column where the data is being returned, provide a test case, and you can execute a test, and at that point, you can mark it as pass or fail based on the data that comes back. And if I mark it as passed and then save the parameter, that's now available to query the data when I go into batches. So if I come into batches and edit my demo batch here, in batches, when you're entering data, you can click on an icon here to perform the query. It will go out, run that query against the source database, and store that data in PIMS. There's also a button at the bottom to query all parameters. So if you have a number of these, it will run them all automatically for you. So that's pretty much a quick rundown of connectivity. And we'll pass it over to Brent to get into some of the other features.
All right, thanks, David. So I'm going to start out in process definition and look at some enhancements we've provided there, beginning with the process definition migration. So in the previous version, we had a download XLS option here, and now it's been replaced by an export XLS option and import. So once a process definition has been created and verified in one environment, we can use the export XLS function to export all that information into an Excel file and then go to a different environment like a production environment and then import that. And all the attributes of this process definition will carry through except for any attachments that have been added. They would have to be added separately. So that's the process migration. The other big enhancement we have is derived parameters. So I have an example here where I have a start time and an end time and a duration. Of course, in past versions, that could only be entered manually. But what I can do now is click on this parameter and go into edit mode. And we have this parameter source drop-down again. So if David just went through the queried parameter option, we have limits only for those fairly rare situations where somebody might want to use PIMS to capture the limits, but the batch data is available elsewhere and they want to query it into a different system. But we'll look at derived here. And when I select derived, then I'm given a box here to enter a formula. So I'm going to put my cursor in that box, and I'm going to take the end time minus the start time to get a duration. So if I do a double quote, it'll bring me a list of available parameters to select from in this unit operation. I'll select end time, and then I'll subtract the start time, and that will be in days, just like it would be in Excel. And now I can save that, and there I have my derived parameter. So when I go into the data entry area and I enter both the start and an end time, the duration field will automatically be populated. And of course, it'll be grayed out since it is a derived parameter. So that's one example. Another example would be to calculate a summary statistic from a continuous table parameter. So for example, if I want to get the maximum pH value for the whole duration of the culture, I can click on the culture step and add parameter. And let's say this is maximum pH. And again, it's a derived parameter. And in the formula box now, I want to use one of the functions available. And if I type the @ symbol, it will provide me a list of available functions that can be used. And for this example, I want to use maximum. And this is expecting at least one argument here. I can put the double quotes, and then I can select my offline pH sample. And so there I have a summary statistic, maximum pH. And I could, of course, go ahead and put specification limits on it or target control limits or whatever is appropriate. And it can get a little more complicated. For example, doubling time here, if I click on that, you can see that it's a more complex formula where we're using values from more than one row here to calculate a doubling time. Another small enhancement we made in process definition is for text parameters. If a parameter has a text type defined, then you can enter values that will populate a drop-down when it comes to data entry. So moving over to analytics, I'll start with the individuals chart, which we had in 3.0. But we've made some enhancements there to that. One of the things you'll notice is it defaults to the last 30 batches now instead of a date range. But we have a chart type drop down, so we can also select an individual moving range. I'm going to go ahead and select Osmo as a parameter to chart here. And the first thing you'll notice is we now have a separate symbol here that indicates outlier. So in 3.0 we had batch outlier status available, and we can enter comments at the batch level. But starting with 3.1, we can, at the parameter level, toggle parameters on or off as an outlier and enter comments. So if I hover over this, you can see the comment, and there's too much salt. Over here at the end, I also have a comment, although that's not marked as an outlier. But we can drill down into that now. So if I click on that, I can see all the details about this parameter in the same way I could in the batch data entry area. But we have two new things at the top here, outlier status, which I can toggle on and off, and of course the comment I can edit directly from here as well. And also we have a drill down into the specification limit information. So this essentially looks like the flyout in the limits area, so I can find out the valid date range of that specification limit, what the values are, any background information around that in the form of attachments or URLs, change reason, who did it and when. And also the batch metadata is available from here as well. So I can get additional information about the batch. If I want to dig further into this particular result in the batch record, I have a link right here for that. I can pull that up and get into that. So I'll go to the next few parameters here. And here's an example where I have a change in the target control limits. And again, if I click on that, I can drill down and get the information behind those target control limits. The effective date range, who created them and when, and any background information to justify those new limits. So I have a link here to a CAPA document, and then comments about why this target limit changed. And the other thing here that's really handy is as I toggle from one to the next, it will use target limits or not, depending on whether it has target limits. So in display options, under limit method, we have a use best option. So if target limits are available, it will use them. Otherwise, it will calculate from the data. So that's about it for individuals. And here's an individual range chart option. And then we also have XBar now. And so in the chart type drop down, we can do XBar or XBar and R or XBar and F. So these are standard control charts that are available. And we'll look at process capability briefly here. This is pretty much the same as before, except that we have now also, if I look at overall, for example, we calculate the actual percentage outside of the spec limits and the estimated based on the distribution. So we've added those features as well. A totally new plot in 3.1 is the normality plot. So this will tell you whether or not your data is normally distributed. If it falls along that straight line, that indicates it's normally distributed, but we also provide hypotheses tests to test that as well. So if I go into the display options, we have the Anderson-Darling and Shapiro-Wilk, and you can choose one or the other or both of those, and it'll give you the calculated test statistic values as well as p-values to test the hypotheses for normality. And if I go back to that first parameter I looked at before, where there was an outlier, that carries through to all the outputs, that outlier status and comments associated with that outlier. And of course, in display options, there's an option to exclude that from the calculations. That could be unchecked, of course, and that's available in the control chart as well. So the next thing I'll look at is the name preferences. So if we go to charting preferences, we had the default preferences before that could be modified, but now in the kebab up here we have add charting preferences. So if I wanted to create a set of preferences for the Barcelona site, I'll call it Barcelona, and then I can change whatever I want from the default, change symbol types and colors and so forth. So I make all those changes I want and then save that. And now I have a separate set of preferences for Barcelona. And now if I go to the site definition and go into Barcelona, I can edit that and I can use that new named preference set for just this site. Also here we added a checkbox for the date and time formats. So it may be that there are different sites in different regions that use different date and time formats. If this is checked here, you can select something specific to that site and it'll override the system date and time formats. So that's pretty much it. That's a quick overview of the major enhancements to the system. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Stop share. All right, so thank you, David and Brent. It looks like we don't currently have any questions. Of course, if questions come up, if you think of something after this session, feel free to give us a call. We'd love to go through this in more detail with you. To close, if you haven't already and would like to schedule a PIMS upgrade, you can go ahead and send an email to support@skylandanalytics.net, where our DevOps team will reach out to you directly to schedule. And we'd like to take, sorry, I'm not, I was just told I wasn't sharing. Let's see. Sorry about that. All right, now I think I'm sharing. Okay, good. Now let's go back here. All right, there's the web address, support@skylandanalytics.net, if you didn't capture that before. And then wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to let you know that we have our user conference coming up in Boston on Thursday, October 24th. We'll be sending out information in the next coming weeks, opening up registration, but in the meantime, please pencil this in on your calendar. We look forward to seeing you there. And I believe that's it. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.